Today, I'm going to recap a 2011 action crime film called Blitz. The film begins with the scene of a police sergeant named Tom Brandt waking up in the middle of the night while sleeping on the sofa. Brandt noticed three teenage boys making suspicious movements near a parked car when he looked out the window by accident. He immediately approached them with a hockey stick. One of the three teenagers approaches Brandt and asks for his wallet. Brandt, who has a volatile personality, immediately strikes the teenager with his hockey stick. Brandt's suspicions were proven correct. Three teenagers were smashing car windows. Brandt then scolded them and quickly left. The beating case went viral in the media a few days later, until Brandt was summoned to his superior's office. He was the police chief. Brandt had been involved in several beatings, according to his boss. Brandt also beat a criminal until he passed out a year ago. Brandt's boss then threatened him with dismissal if he didn't change his attitude. Brandt bravely told his boss that if he was fired, he would make matters worse. He then went back to his desk. Elizabeth Falls, a police officer, appeared unexpectedly at Brandt's desk. Falls stated that she currently feels like a failure in rehab and is very discouraged. This occurred as a result of her 2-year undercover mission with the drug squad. Brandt, on the other hand, reassured her that her rehabilitation had only been running for a few months and that it was natural that it had not been successful. In the following scene, Brandt meets James Robert, a superintendent of police who is attending his wife's funeral. They went to a bar after the event to cheer up Robert and laugh together. The scene then shifts to a police officer named Sandra Bates walking alone at night. A mysterious man suddenly appeared in front of her. Bates was killed instantly when the man shot her. Brandt had just returned from the bar when he received a call about the murder and immediately went to the scene. Brandt arrived on the scene and asked a man taking his 2 dogs for a night walk for information. Unfortunately, the man was not present at the time of the murder and could not provide any information. The next day, a man named Porter Nash arrived at the police station. He stated that Police Chief Brown requested that he come over to replace Inspector Robert, who had extended his leave. Nash is tasked with assisting Robert with a number of cases that arise, but he was met with hostility because he was suspected of being gay. The scene shifts to Falls' home, where a man named John, a childhood friend of hers, arrives to ask for her assistance. He told her that he and 2 friends had beaten a man the night before. Falls felt sorry for John and wanted to help him after hearing his story. However, thanks to a note, the victim is still alive. Falls told John to go home and then went to the office. Falls met Brandt at the office to talk about her friend's case and solicit opinions. Brandt recommended that Falls meet with a man named Craig Stokes. The action has now shifted to the news agency. A man named Harold Dunlop receives a phone call from an unknown man who claims to have exclusive information about a serial police murder. The condition is that Dunlop report every murder that results in the death of a police officer. The man also predicted that there would be 8 new cases involving police killings in the future. The mysterious man immediately murdered the second police officer after the phone was hung up. He approached and shot a police officer who was in the car. The police investigated and re-investigated the second murder case. Brandt soon meets a man named Radner, who frequently provides him with information in exchange for money. He told about a man named Barry Weiss, who was kicked out of the Peacock Gym, as well as other details. However, after obtaining the information, Brandt only gave Radner the chips and left. Brandt then went to Peacock Gym to look for information on Weiss. Brandt arrived at Nash's house that evening to discuss the cases they were working on. Nash also explained why he was transferred to Brandt's place in between conversations. Nash had beaten a pedophile with many important connections in order to avoid prosecution. Someone then placed a security device in his locker and accused him of being a pedophile. However, when Nash became dissatisfied with his job and considered suicide, he was instead transferred to Brandt's office and hired as an inspector. The following scene depicts Robert shopping at the supermarket. He then returned to his office, despite the fact that he was still on leave. When he arrived at the chief of police's office, he was asked to retire early. Robert then declined. He wanted to continue working, even if it was only as a field police officer. Meanwhile, Brandt and Nash are on their way to Weiss's apartment. They'd found Weiss and immediately searched the room for evidence. Brandt recognized Weiss' face when he saw it. He turned out to be the guy he hit in the billiards arena a year ago. They left Weiss's place right away. Weiss, suspicious, quickly packed his belongings and left the apartment. He follows Robert to his apartment after moving in to make him his next target. Weiss broke into his apartment while posing as a cable TV clerk. When Robert heard a knock on the door, he immediately opened it. But then a man pointed a gun at him. Robert was also successful in dispelling it until they were struggling. But in the end, Weiss was able to kill Robert with a hammer. Weiss, like a psychopath, watched TV while eating snacks at Robert's house and in front of his corpse after murdering him. Weiss quickly brought some items and began to burn others until the fire grew. The fire department arrived not long after. Weiss, on the other hand, was leisurely cycling around the scene while calling Dunlop. He informed them that he had just killed the third police officer. He referred to himself as Blitz to Dunlop at the time. Following that, Weiss went to an old building parking lot to store Robert's belongings in the trunk of his car. The news quickly became trending on the front page of the newspaper the next day, shocking the police station. They were humiliated by the incident. Brandt, who had just arrived, was taken aback when he learned of Robert's murder. The remaining evidence has been brought to the police station by the officers on duty. Brandt and Nash checked right away. Brandt discovers a half-burned Peacock Gym membership card. He immediately directed his men to ascertain whether or not Robert was a member of the Peacock Gym. In the following scene, Radnor, seeing an opportunity to profit from this case, decides to handle it himself. He began looking for evidence by digging in the trash near Weiss's house. Radnor discovered a note in Weiss's name. As Radnor walked away from the parking lot, he noticed Weiss's car parked there by chance. Radnor immediately pries open Weiss's trunk. He was surprised to find some of Robert's belongings after he succeeded. However, Radnor did not immediately notify the police. He chose to call a reporter and offer $50,000 in exchange for a news story. Dunlop agreed right away because he needed the information. Then Dunlop went straight to the old building to meet Radnor. When Dunlop arrives, Radnor informs him that he knows Blitz's true identity. But unbeknownst to them, Weiss is also working behind the scenes. The two of them then exited the old structure. Weiss seized the opportunity right away, removing everything from his trunk. Dunlop and Radnor went to a bar to do business. Radnor requests that the money be paid first, and then he will reveal Blitz's true identity. They then reached an agreement. Radnor immediately went to the toilet to count the money after receiving it. Surprisingly, Weiss went into the restroom and found Radnor, who had not yet revealed his identity to Dunlop. Weiss intimidated Radnor, who appeared increasingly terrified in a relaxed manner. He eventually kills him and steals Radnor's money. Falls, on the other hand, went to see Stokes and told him about her problem while assisting a friend's case. Stoke agreed to assist her on the condition that Falls accompany him to drink tonight, knowing that John's victim was still alive. They eventually met at a bar and drank late into the night. Unbeknownst to them, Weiss is keeping an eye on Falls from across the street in order to make her their next victim. Brandt, on the other hand, who was looking for data and the identity of Barry Weiss, discovered that Weiss had been arrested several times for minor offenses. Surprisingly, all of the cops killed by Blitz were officers who had arrested Weiss. Brandt, who had discovered Falls' name, had apprehended Weiss and directed his team to go to Falls' house right away. Stoke and Falls got into an argument on their way home because Falls thought Stoke was just playing with her and wasn't serious about helping her case. Falls eventually decided to walk into her house by herself. However, before she could open the house door, Weiss attacked her from behind. Falls, fortunately, avoided the attack. Not long after that, John appeared and attacked Weiss from behind, but his attack failed, causing him to fall into the street. Weiss stomped so hard on his head that he died. Brandt and the other cops didn't take long to arrive. Falls told Brandt that she didn't believe her friend should die to help her. Brandt and Nash went to Weiss's apartment right away, but there was nothing there. Nash, on the other hand, was still looking for clues in Weiss's room. Nash discovers an old Weiss photograph and requests that Brandt publish it as a fugitive. Some residents who saw the photos circulating in the media recognized Weiss and gave police information. When the police learned that Weiss was in a hotel, they immediately dispatched a team to him. They broke down the hotel room door when they arrived, but it was empty. Weiss, it turned out, had fled from the hotel room window. Brandt, who is aware of this, dashes out of the hotel to pursue Weiss. Finally, they both ran in the middle of the road until they came to a halt at an old gas station. Brandt, who managed to block Weiss, appears enraged and wishes to express his feelings right away. The police team arrived just in time and immediately blocked the emotional Brandt. Weiss appeared to be happy as well, seeing that Brandt couldn't hit him. When they arrived at the police station, they immediately questioned Weiss. During interrogation, however, Weiss requested the assistance of a lawyer as well as a slice of bread. His request was granted, and he was accompanied in the interrogation room by his lawyer. The lawyer stated that if no charges were filed against Weiss within 48 hours, the police must unconditionally release him. Unfortunately, Brandt and Nash lacked sufficient evidence to sue him. They eventually went to his superiors and told them they couldn't charge him because Weiss had lost track of him. Brandt and Nash, who are both disappointed after returning home from work, decide to go to the bar for a drink together. Brandt discusses Nash's story about beating a pedophile outside of the law at the time. Brandt draws an analogy. If the Weiss case cannot be resolved legally, it must be resolved without legal means, namely with his own hands. Nash, on the other hand, disagreed and immediately left him. Brandt went straight to his office after leaving the bar to see Weiss that night. He reminded Weiss of the case from last year, when he was caught beating a husband and wife. Brandt enraged Weiss by claiming that he and the other officers laughed at the CCTV footage of the beating. Brandt then demanded that Weiss immediately admit all of his actions because it was dangerous for him out there, but Weiss refused arrogantly. Weiss was acquitted the next day and walked out of the police station with a triumphant smile. Many reporters were already covering him outside the police station. The following scene takes place at Robert's funeral. In the pouring rain, all police officers attended Robert's funeral procession. An unknown man in a police uniform emerged from the crowd and approached Brandt. The man is revealed to be Weiss, who has set Brandt as his next victim. Brandt immediately left the cemetery for his car after receiving a short message on his cell phone. Weiss followed him right away. Weiss followed Brandt to the roof of a building and pointed his gun at him from behind. Weiss, on the other hand, was taken aback when the person looked at him. It turned out that the man's name was Nash, not Brandt. Brandt, on the other hand, appeared from behind him and beat him with a crowbar. In an emergency, Weiss could still threaten to sue them and have his case reported in the media. Ignoring Weiss' words, Brandt fired his bullet right at his head, using the gun he'd been using to kill the cops all along. Brandt and Nash immediately cleaned up the evidence and left Weiss' body on the building roof. According to Brandt, the serial murder case against the police will never be solved.